Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 84. Hey Junkies, thanks for joining me on a new episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Now, if you like these little interviews and don't want to miss any future episodes, just head over to iTunes and Stitcher and subscribe to the show. Now, I would also like to thank everyone who has also left a rating and a review. It's great reading your feedback, and it just keeps me motivated to bring you even more new shows. So if you haven't, please consider leaving a rating and a review, and just see it as your early Christmas gift to me. Alright, on to today's show. Stefanie Bishop is a US athlete who competes in ultra endurance, adventure and obstacle course races like the infamous Death Race, which she has won twice, and World's Toughest Mudder, which she won in 2016. Stefanie was very active as a child and competed in a number of different sports growing up. Now, she picked up triathlon in 2005, but got bored quickly and started looking at other endurance events. And in 2009 she came across the Death Race, which is now developed into the Spartan series of races. So hi Stefanie, thanks for coming on the show. Now I was hoping to talk to you about your successful defense of the World's Toughest Mudder title, but that turned out a bit different. What happened exactly?
Well, thanks for having me on. Unfortunately, I had to bow out of World's Toughest Mudder. I completed 40 miles of the course due to a hip injury. I have a femoral neck stress reaction, so that's the precursor to a stress fracture. So thankfully, I've avoided a stress fracture. It started a month out. I had a pain at the end of a long run, and I actually ended up I stopped running completely for the month leading up to World's Toughest Mudder. I didn't know what it was until after World's Toughest Mudder because I actually couldn't get an MRI where I was training. So I just pretty much did physical therapy and grip strength for the month leading up to World's Toughest Mudder, knowing that if my endurance, even though my endurance dropped a little bit, that I was still mentally capable and physically capable of being the first woman to run 100 miles. But it is what it is. I'm on the road to recovery already, and I'm one day closer to next year's event.
Okay, is that your goal for next year? It's just do next year what you didn't do this year?
Definitely. I have a lot of unfinished business out there. I think my season as a whole kind of left me with this, I'm not satisfied. I feel like I didn't complete any of my goals this season. I'm not really upset about it, but, the fire's burning.
Yeah. Is that like the first time that you're dealing with a serious injury like that?
This is the most serious injury I've ever had. I think, pretty much the majority of any athlete has kind of gone through little things here and there. I've never been to the point where I'm not allowed to do any lower body activity for weeks at a time.
Okay, so what are you doing now then to kill time?
So my doctor has cleared me I do a lot of seated upper body work. I do a lot with a cable machine because I can't carry a weight over to a bench. That would break the rules. I started to swim, but I use a pull buoy to keep my legs out of it. And I'm allowed to do seated ski erg. So, between all of that, it's fine. It's maybe good for my body to take it easier. I actually love being in the water. I think it's great cross training. I'm a triathlete at heart, so I know that the pool is just great in general for training. So it's really not that bad.
Okay, well, good luck with the recovery, and I hope we'll be back on track pretty soon.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's backtrack a bit, and for the people that might not know you, can you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your sporting background and how you ended up in obstacle course racing?
Sure. How far back do you want me to go?
From the beginning.
I've been active since I was a baby, since I could crawl. Yeah. So, it was always in my blood. I don't come from really an athletic family, so to speak. I mean, both my parents played sports, but not to the extent at what I do. But besides all the, sports in school growing up, I think when I started to get serious was when I started triathlon in 2005. And it was after university. I was very competitive, and I fell in love with the competition and just with pushing myself. And from there, I got a little bored. I always wanted to get into adventure racing. I saw it on TV, and it intrigued me. The unknown. I like being out in nature, and I kind of like not knowing where I'm going. There's something about an undefined race course that really appealed to me. I found this race. Actually, a friend suggested that I do this race. It was called the Death Race, and it took place in Pittsfield, Vermont. It was a race of unknown length. You didn't know when it was going to start. You didn't know when it was going to end. And you had no idea what you were going to do. They pretty much sometimes gave you a gear list. Sometimes they didn't give you a gear list. Whatever you brought, you had to take with you for the rest of the race. So it was a physical and mental race, and most people didn't finish it. And I think that was part of the appeal to me, was that it was a very low finishing rate. And again, the whole unknown factor. And in fact, actually, Joe DeSena, the man who started Spartan Race, he was doing the Death Race long before that. That was his racing company, Peak Races. So that's how I actually that was my link into obstacle course racing. But I went out, I did my first one. I showed up 5 minutes before the race started because I was in school at the time. And I won the thing outright. Very unexpected. Everybody discounted me because I'm very positive, very bubbly personality. I'm always smiling. And everybody thought that I was going to quit within the first few hours. But 18 hours later, I was the first person standing.
Yeah. With that physical capability there, did that come from your triathlon background, you think?
I would definitely say so. I was doing triathlon 2010. I was only up to the half Ironman distance at that point. I did an Ironman in 2012, but I would definitely say so. But it comes to a certain point in a race like that when you had no idea what you were going to do, and some things were just some things were strength based and some things were more endurance based. So they would say here, and also the mental aspect. They'd give you a wheelbarrow, like a cart, all in pieces, and you'd have to assemble it. And then you'd have to chop all of this wood and then take the wood up to the top of the mountain. And mind you, this was in the snow. So the wheelbarrow doesn't wheel when it's filled with stuff because of the snow. So, you kind of actually have to figure out, but the wheelbarrow has to go with you. So you have to kind of take everything in pieces to get up the mountain. So there's all these different aspects that make it difficult. And a lot of it's repetitive. So after a while, it breaks you down. It can drive you absolutely insane. Yeah. But I liked it. I thought of it as just a big game.
Okay. How many of these death races did you do then?
I have done 4. The race is no longer in existence. Yep, the longest one I did was 65 hours long.
Wow. That's insane. Well, compared to that, I mean, World's Toughest Mudder is like a piece of cake, no?
No, they're different. It's funny. I say to people, I only start to get warmed up at least 12 hours into an event. If it's a multi-day event, it could take me a day. And then you just find your rhythm, you settle in, and you deal with things as they come. World's Toughest Mudder is a bit faster paced because, that's it. You have 24 hours. The death race, you just didn't know when you were going to stop.
Okay, so maybe these quadruple Ironmans or stuff like the Barclays Marathon, is that something that's up your alley?
Yeah, I would say so, definitely in the future. The Barclays has been on my radar for many, many years. But I don't think I want to do it per se yet. I think maybe more like the quintuple Ironmans. That's more my speed. and more adventure racing. I've done a few expedition length adventure races, but I'd love to do something like Primal Quest, which is, they give you up to, I think, 10 days, but I'm sure the winners probably finish in, a few days, 5-6 days.
Okay. Do you know how to get into Barclays?
Well, you do your research.
No, I just by coincidence, I saw a documentary yesterday about the race. I think it was about the 2012 race, and yeah, it was pretty fun to see. There was even a guy from Belgium there, so there's maybe even a chance for me if I can get a hold of him. So yeah,
you just have to keep on trying. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, and you don't have to. Yeah, $1.60 is a lot of fun for that amount of money.
Exactly.
So obstacle course racing, it definitely has taken the world by storm, and you were one of the pioneers, doing these death races and stuff like that. How have you seen the whole scene evolve over these last couple of years?
Well, I did the first ever Tough Mudder. It was in Pennsylvania. It was in, I think, 2010, 2011, and it was very raw. Very, in a sense, it was somewhat chaotic because, I mean, if you ever hear Will Dean's story about it, they were very underplanned. They didn't plan too well. They weren't also expecting the amount of people that showed up. But it was fun. I think that, that was the underlying factor that has, carried through the years. It's definitely become a lot more, it's very organized now. I think there's a lot of consistency you see, especially within, the different races have definitely, especially Spartan and Tough Mudder, have defined their brands and in what they do and what they bring as a race. It's great. I think now this past year, the Obstacle Course Racing World Championship has shown how much the sport has grown. Thousands of athletes went out to that, and it was some of the best athletes in the world. I think it's a sport where you're finding that these people don't just come from one background. They're multi-sport athletes. They're very, they're very diverse athletes. So for example, you have John Alvin, who is, I think he won the Extreme, Sky Running Championship. Mm-hmm. And then he's, won obstacle course, OCR World Champs as well. You're not good at just one thing. And I think the sport's going in a very great direction. You have a lot of coverage now here in the States on national television, on CBS and NBC, and it's really great for the sport. It's great for the athletes as well because they can seek sponsorships now.
Yeah, and I guess it's a bit more easier on the eye than an Ironman, for example, which goes on for 8-9 hours and is just boring to watch.
It is. They do a good job with Ironman coverage. I think just there's a cult following for that. I think obstacle course racing also really, there's a lot more opportunity for things to happen because it's ever evolving. The obstacles are constantly developing. People are learning, how to, technique's a huge thing, when it comes to Ironman, and I love triathlon. I absolutely love it. I'm thinking about doing one next year. It's swim, bike, run. It's pretty straightforward, mm-hmm. especially when you get into this other style of racing. When it comes to obstacle course racing, it's well, this is a brand new obstacle. How am I going to approach it? I've never seen it in my life. And you see these athletes and they plow right through them like they've, been practicing it for the past 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. You got some advice for beginners if they want to pick up the sport?
I think, first off, have fun with your training. The best part about obstacle course racing is that you can do so much within training, so many playful things. So go to a playground and, work on your grip strength. You want to be able to move your body in multiple planes. And again, the reference to triathlon is that's a very directional sport. Mm-hmm. So you're just moving forward and that's it. And you're doing the same in obstacle course racing, except now you're adding in walls, you're adding in monkey bars, you're adding in ropes, you're adding in all these things to move your body in a different direction. And I think it's also great for the body anyway. So as a beginner, you definitely want to work on your aerobic capacity. So you want to build your endurance. And you'd like to build some speed, especially if you're doing the shorter races, and work on your grip strength. Work on not just pull-ups, work on rope climbs, work on heavy carries. Just you want to train your body in all different ways because that's how you adapt to whatever obstacles you face.
Yeah. So it's just not running and taking a gym and going to the gym. It's really slugging tires and climbing walls and trying to find these natural obstacles and work on those as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can train for an obstacle course race within a gym and slowly in a gym, but I think that it's a lot more fun to get creative. I go to like the hardware store and I find things. You go buy a bucket for a few dollars. You can go buy some rope. You don't need a lot of money to get into the sport, and I think that's why a lot of people also like the sport and have started the sport is because. You don't need a lot of money. You don't have to buy a nice bicycle to get into the sport.
Yeah, okay. So are you a full-time athlete or do you work as well?
I do work as well. I don't work full-time, but I am a sponsored athlete as well. So I balance my time. I'd say at this point I'm definitely more athlete than I am desk jockey. No. I used to work in finance. I was an equity derivatives broker, and it just didn't appeal to me. So I was bored, and all of my clients kept on telling me that you should just do this for a living, like it's your calling. So it was nice for them to also help push me into it.
Yeah, is there some good money in the sport already?
I think for the top athletes, there's some athletes who have definitely made some really good money this year. The purses are larger with the exposure. Like Tough Mudder, Spartan Race, they're allowed to also give out larger purses. I mean, they have the ability to give out larger purses. So I think Ryan Atkins walked away with $50,000-$60,000 at World's Toughest Mudder alone. Mm-hmm. So you add that with all the other race earnings throughout the year with sponsorships, I think you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, okay. So you think that within now and the next couple of years, you'll see a lot more full-time pro athletes?
I think you will. I think also there's, if you want to become a pro athlete, I think you also need to realize the value in you as a brand, and you also have to be creative. Because any professional athlete, for the most part, not any, I would say a lot of them, in any sport, they're a brand. They endorse products. They do other things besides just race. They make sure that they have content out. They're writing articles. It's not just, I think for a lot of them, it's not just, you race and that's it. And to me, though, that's the fun part of it. I love to connect with people. I love to make video content. I've done a lot of videos with Tough Mudder this past year, part of their series called Coachified. And pretty much the basis of the series is that we show you that fitness is fun and you don't need fancy equipment or a gym to get it done. And it's been a blast.
Yeah, social media is pretty good for that. Yeah, no doubt. So what does a typical training week look like then for you? And do you coach yourself or do you work with certain people?
I coach myself, but I also collaborate with people within my circle that, I'll bounce ideas off of them. I'll talk to my physical therapist, people at my gym who are very knowledgeable, who are more knowledgeable in certain things and things that I'm not as knowledgeable in. So it helps. They help me immensely with certain programming, more on I would say the strength side than the endurance side. Typical week, it depends on really what I'm training for. World's Toughest Mudder, I add in a lot more volume. So leading up to Worlds, before I had to stop running, I was building my mileage up to, I think my highest mileage week was about 81 miles. I would cap out just a touch bit more, or, depending on how I feel, I may cap out of my mileage for the week at only 75 miles. My long run would be so my typical week, here we go. Monday's rest day, full rest. I don't do anything. If anything, I just stretch and, stretch, roll out, do maintenance like that. Tuesday, generally some just basic aerobic work, strength training. Wednesday is a longer run. Thursday is a recovery run. Friday is usually speed work of sorts. Saturday is more of a recovery run, shorter distance. Sunday is a long run. Sometimes my long run includes some kind of pickup in the middle of it for a few miles just to get my, some, I'd like maybe some tempo work or something like that. In addition to that, I'd strength train. I would say about 2 days would be very hard strength training, like heavy weights, higher intensity. And then the other days that I strength train, it's more like grip strength. It's very mellow. Heart rate's very low. Some maintenance work like physical therapy, mobility, lots of band work, balance work. Nothing that I'm going to be sore from, but it's the work I need to do to maintain the volume that I'm doing.
Okay. What about go ahead.
Yep. No, I was going to say sometimes I would also, if I'm not feeling like running, I'd just hop on my bike instead. I think that, you have to really listen to your body. My training weeks would change every day. I would look at my training plan and evaluate if that's what I should be doing that day.
Yeah, okay, well, it's a pretty complete sport. So, I mean, yeah, if you cross-train, that definitely will help you keep that endurance pace that you have. So,
yep.
How about nutrition? Is that pretty important?
Nutrition is extremely important. Feed the machine. I am a plant-based athlete.
Okay.
I don't eat meat. And people think it's actually not that difficult to get protein, but I always have to stay on top of it. I have to stay on top of more so, I think, my amino acids, vitamin D, iron, things like that. But it's pretty honed in. I pretty much eat a lot of the same things when I'm really training hard and training a lot of hours. It just makes it easier for me to just whip up a meal and to eat. And I usually make my food in bulk. It's like a huge time hack to just make food for the next 3 days and just kind of like have it in the fridge. I eat a lot of, quinoa, sweet potatoes, rice, some other grains. I like barley and farro. Tons and tons of vegetables. I always try to, shop local if possible. The freshness, the quality, that's very important to me. And I like a lot of nut butters, cashew butters, things like that. And I don't know, my diet's not boring to me. It is. I think it's just very wholesome and just very fresh. And I do love ice cream. So that's my guilty pleasure. It's not even a guilty pleasure. I love ice cream, and I have no problem eating ice cream.
I can relate to that.
Especially after a long run.
A well-deserved one, yeah. Is that diet something that you had been experimenting with and finding then what works best for you?
Well, I never really enjoyed eating meat, and I actually never really ate much of it. Even when I was eating it, maybe it was like once a month not even once a month would I eat red meat. I would have chicken maybe a handful of times a week. So I never really ate it. I just kind of happened naturally that I phased it out of my diet. And it's been fine. I do have protein shakes with, vegan protein, and I think it's fine. And, if anything, my body composition I haven't made a drastic swing. I haven't lost a lot of weight or anything, and I haven't gained a lot of weight. It's been actually pretty consistent, and I actually feel better. I have higher energy levels since I've cut out meat completely.
Yeah. Okay.
But to each their own.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you work a bit. You do a lot of training. You obviously spend some time preparing all those meals and stuff like that. Do you feel you need to make some sacrifices in your life to live the lifestyle that you do?
If you asked me that question 10 years ago, I would say yes. But now, no, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing anything because I'm doing what I love to do. And I think it's a learning process for people to get to that point. But I also have a really wonderful circle of friends, and they understand that this is my passion and it's also my job. And I think that's a big part of it, is having a group of friends and family that understand what you do and support what you do. And you'll never then feel like you're sacrificing anything. Yeah, there are times I would love to do, maybe go to a party that a friend's hosting or something. But in the end, I see if I'm in the middle of the season, I'm focusing on a race. And at that point, actually, probably I'm so focused on that race, it doesn't bother me at all that I don't never feel that I'm missing out on something. And let's be honest, racing takes you to some beautiful places in this world. So it's a win. It's a win just based upon that.
Yeah. Okay. What do you see as your biggest achievement in your career so far, and what's your biggest disappointment?
Well, I'm not. It would be so easy because World's Toughest Mudder is so fresh in my mind that's my biggest disappointment. But I think I just more so let people down. But I understand that I didn't, and I'm not per se disappointed actually really anymore. I think I was disappointed for a few hours during the race. There's nothing that has eaten me alive in terms of I think that regret or I wish I did this race. I wish I was smarter at this point. I think that's just wasting energy. So nothing has been nothing has stood out as the biggest disappointment. My biggest accomplishment, World's Toughest Mudder is one of those things I focused on it quietly throughout the year. Nobody really knew I was going to race it. So I think to a lot of people, I came out of the gate and nobody knew who I was. And unless you knew me from my death races. And that was a huge accomplishment because I just put all of my energy on it. And every single day I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you're going to go out there and you're going to win it. So, I think that was a huge accomplishment to work so many months and to go out there and do what I set out to do. But, my death races are always, those are those things that not many people in this world have had the opportunity to do, and not many people who did it finished it. So those will always stay very close to my heart. And it's funny, you race for 3 days straight and you get this cheap little $5 plastic skull, but that thing is priceless.
Yeah, it definitely is. All right, thanks for your time, Stefanie. It's been fun. How can people get in touch with you if they want to?
So people can either get in touch with me if you want to follow my Instagram. It's Steph Adventures. It's SCEF as in Frank Adventures. You can either or you can contact me via my website, stephaniebishop.com.
Okay, cool. I'll put those links up on the show notes page. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors.
All right. Well, Tough Mudder, I'm on the Tough Mudder Pro team, and you're gonna have to wait. I'm working on some stuff right now behind the scenes, okay. But just keep a lookout. 2018, I can tell you right now, is gonna be one hell of a year.
So it's gonna be more than World's Toughest Mudder?
Oh yes. Yeah, I'm working on some stuff.
Okay,
We're working on some logistics for some things outside of racing.
Okay, cool. We'll keep an eye on the website then and on the social media. One final question. You step outside of the house after this interview and you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What do you do?
Ooh, $10 million after taxes or before taxes? Because after taxes, it's only like $5 million.
Just do after taxes. Just net.
What do I do? Well, first I put a huge chunk of it away, to save so I can retire and just travel around. I think if my hip's 100% healthy, I go plan some wild adventure. I don't even know where. I definitely want to get out to New Zealand. Oh gosh. I would just be out, and the thing is, I would use it probably to a lot of it, not a lot of it, because it's $10 million. I'd use a huge chunk of it and go outfit myself and a bunch of really adventurous friends and go on some crazy adventure in some wilderness that, people don't, some remote wilderness.
Okay. Yeah, well, New Zealand, you got Coast to Coast there, which is a pretty fun race, I think.
That is a fun race, actually. I haven't done it yet, but it looks like a good one.
I had Richard Usher on. He won it a couple of times, and he's a race director now. So, yeah, definitely get in touch with him if you want to do that one.
Oh, that sounds like a good one. I'm going to keep that in the back of my head.
All right. Thanks for your time, Stefanie. It's been a ball.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Junkies. Thanks for listening to this episode with Stefanie Bishop. Yeah, I'm pretty curious to see what she's going to do next year. And yeah, I have a feeling she might be returning to the show pretty soon, sometime next year. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you'll join me next time for my chat with Chris Hendy about strength training for endurance athletes. Cheers, guys.